I'm Jeremy with ShirtSpace, and this is Robby with Addictive Fishing. We're in their warehouse today. We're going to learn all about screen printing. So Robby, I'll hand it over to you. What does your setup look like here? What is the equipment that you need?
So we run a pretty humble setup, I'd say, for production. We're not outputting an insane amount. We're not doing like 30,000 shirts a day or anything like that. So pretty small, but this is like kind of, I think, an entry-level production setup. So we have 6-color 4-station press here, just a standard flash dryer, and an 8-foot conveyor. So pretty small amount of space this takes up also. I mean, we're in a 10 by 10-ish probably little square to get all this done in. Nothing super crazy. I think this is what you're going to see, like I said, in most smaller production or entry-level shops.
The next step is in a screen printing project is prepping the screen. So we're going to go over to the darkroom to do that?
Exactly, yeah. That's when you'll get all that started and kind of show you the start to finish of how to make the screen. So.
All right, let's do it. Here we are in the darkroom, and I have to admit, I'm a little surprised by all the amber lights. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so we use those just to eliminate UV from the room. Your emulsion here that you're going to coat your screens with is sensitive to UV light, so that's how it's exposed. That's how you get your image in your screens, what the exposure unit does. So just trying to eliminate that out of the process, less factors of things going wrong.
Gotcha. So what is all that stuff you have here? What do you use it for?
So we have our scoop coater and our emulsion. Those are your bare essentials. You need those to coat your screens. I have some extra things here that I just like to use to make life a little easier. So we have gloves. We're dealing with emulsion. It's a very weird texture and consistency, so it's really easy to make a mess with. So I like to have gloves on this at all times because it's just less things to get it on. I use these little cards, especially just to clean it up and get it out of the scoop coater, because they have this little lip here that you can kind of just go along the edge. Makes it really nice. Spatula to mix, and just paper towel.
This right here is the exposure unit.
Yes, correct.
And then you got screens down here.
Yep.
And there's a variety of screen numbers I see on the things there. What's the deal with that?
So for ours, you're pretty much going to see mostly just 160 to 200. It's going to be what we use almost exclusively. And those numbers are going to indicate to you your threads per square inch. So something like a 160 mesh, you're going to have less threads than a 200 mesh, and that's going to be more open space for your ink to flow through. So there are different purposes for that. We use plastisol exclusively here, but we use higher mesh counts because we like to keep the ink thinner. And part of that is with the way we coat the screens as well. We do less coats, which helps with that, and then higher mesh count. So just less ink going on the shirt, just a little softer and nicer. You'll probably hear people saying the ink, is really thick on their shirt. They don't like it. A lot of that's from your mesh count. Using a 110 or something lower like that's going to give you a lot more ink deposit on your shirt. And it looks really good, but it's like you have this thick layer of plastic you don't want to deal with.
Yeah, I've noticed that. And also, so with the higher mesh count, lets you do more detail.
Exactly.
Lower might work better for like blockier.
Exactly. So if you're doing like photo style things or halftones, you're always going to be like a 200, 230, maybe even a 305, depending on the type of ink or like what kind of, if you're doing a CMYK process or something like that, you definitely want that tighter detail. We're just doing a one color like we talked before in the dark room. Very simple. This is going to be the easiest type of design to work with because there's just way less work involved. It's pretty cut and dry. We'll just start here. We're going to do the ShirtSpace logo. This nice college varsity style logo, just in one color. We're going to be printing this in white. It's already colored in black, which is actually half of what we need to do. So we're going to take this, I'm going to click on this, and luckily it's all grouped together, so we're good there. I start a new file every time I make a film because I have it set to the preferences I need it to be, the size, and making sure it's CMYK and any of those specific settings that I want. Because sometimes when people send you files, you can see this is in RGB, which is not how we're going to be printing our film. So that can get a little funky sometimes. So when you go to print your film, it may not turn out properly because the color mode is wrong. I have my 13 by 19. Which is my film size. I'm going to paste this into here. You can see this gives you an idea of scale too. So first thing I'll do is just resize it. A chest design like this, I mean, the max I'm probably gonna go is about 11 inches. Your edges, these edges are further out than these, so 11 is gonna be perfect for this, because I like to sit at about 10.5 or maybe 10 inches for most chest prints, so they stay kind of centered on you and don't kind of wrap around. Next thing I wanna do is make sure that the color is right. Like I said, it came over from RGB, so when you convert RGB to CMYK, your values are gonna be totally different. And the last thing we want to do, and I find this just the easiest to do, is just to put registration marks on this. Even though it's a one color, it just makes everything so much easier and quicker and less measuring and dealing with things on your press if you can just have a consistent way all of your films are set up, whether it's a one color or a 6 color. So I have a file that I have already made that I just call registration marks. So you have your circle and your crosshairs, but also this square in here. And it's another point of registration that just helps you just to be more accurate. Even though this is a one color, we're not even gonna be registering or anything. We're just gonna be using it as a center line. So I'm gonna copy that and I'm gonna throw this in here. And I wanna make sure I have two. Now we wanna make sure we actually get them centered properly to the design. Really easy and straightforward. So we're gonna click and drag and just highlight everything. And to get Illustrator to know what we're aligning to, you just don't hold anything else and you just click on your design for a reference point, and you can see it's gonna make our design in a bold outline, and then our registration marks are still normal. And then we're gonna go here, your align window in Illustrator. We wanna align horizontal align center, and that's gonna bring registration marks to the perfect center of the design. I make them 1 inch above and below the design. I do Command G to group that. So now this is all one piece. So the Epson ink that's in here, the Ultra Chrome, is really great. It doesn't look as opaque as you might think it should be, but it actually blocks the UV light of the exposure unit really well, so it doesn't cause any issues. So before I hit print, I'm just gonna load my film in. And I always keep these in the bag or box just because you don't want dust to get on them, because that just can ruin your print. I keep these face up, and it's gonna be hard to tell on video, but these actually have two different textures to them. So you have one side here, this back side is your glossy side that is slippery. You don't want to print on that side. You actually want to print on this other side. This side has a coating to it that will allow the ink to actually adhere to it and dry pretty much immediately. There's not going to be any smearing or anything like that. If you print on this other side of the film, your ink will you'll come out of the printer and you'll note it right away that it's wrong. Quicker it prints it, usually the worse it's going to turn out. So we have this just set to a slower, highest quality setting we can get. All right, there we go. We got our film. Exactly what we're looking for here. Nice and clean. This is a very crucial part of the process. So because we're dealing with a Riley Hopkins press, they actually make this very handy template that's going to kind of give you your platen outlines, your center lines, left chest lines, all these things that just make this really easy to place everything. So this is just what we got here, our design. So when we put this on the screen, it's actually going to go in reverse. So it's actually going to go on here like this. So then when we print it like this, it's the right direction. I just line this top registration mark here up to the top of this line and in the center. So I do this, that's why I do the registration marks at 1 inch on every design. So then the placement on every screen, the designs are always in the same spot. So I'm gonna take this and align this to the screen. And I just do a very mediocre trace of the crosshairs. So just the two lines, I don't know how well you can see that. So that's telling me where the film needs to be on my screen. So I'm gonna take this off, and this would be the same process for multiple colors. So you would do this for every screen. So I just pop this back up here so I can kind of see if the light here where my marks are, and I just need to line that up right there. It's going the right direction. The important part is that you want to make sure that this reads the right direction when you're looking at the inside of the screen, so that's where you're gonna be printing it. So now we'll do the exposure process. So with the exposure unit, we want to make sure we clean the glass. I do this not on every screen, but every batch of screens, just because you want to eliminate any dust or just particles of anything, because anything that gets on the emulsion and blocks the light from exposing the screen, you're going to end up with what we usually call pinholes. Place this here, and we're going to place this with the shirt side, the other side of the screen, down. And then we use this foam here cut to the inside of the screen to fill that space, and we want to create a positive contact between the screen and the film and the glass. You don't want any light to be able to get through between the film and the screen. And then this lid here actually creates pressure. Like this, we latch it down, like so, and that actually creates pressure and presses the foam down. Set my exposure time here. I'm running at 4.5 minutes on this, so it's pretty long, but it's what works with this unit and the emulsion we have. So I'm just gonna go ahead and press expose. And now we just wait. We're just gonna pop this back open now that we're done exposing. Take our foam pad out. Just gonna peel this off like that. I can't really tell. I might be able to see in the light. You can kind of see the design actually burned into the screen now. Soak both sides of the screen and wait 30 seconds or so and then see what happens. And as we get that wet, you can actually see the design kind of come to life there. Then give it 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Just let that emulsion soften up and then it should come out easier. So being able to see the light through there is really important. That's showing you that why we have the light behind the exposure unit, so you can actually see that your emulsion is fully rinsing out. And that's what we're looking for. We want to get all of that clear so we can actually see through. This one looks really clean. So we're going to call it good there. Now it's just drying. So we're going to go ahead and set it up in the dark room like the other screens. Right here on our platen or our print surface, you can tell that we have some sort of cover on it. That just makes it so much easier to deal with, because when you're putting adhesive on your platen, especially with hoodies or something that has a more aggressive adhesive, you're just going to have so much junk on there to have to clean up. I'll just go ahead and peel this off and kind of see it's kind of wrap around the edges here. This is just almost like a masking tape like material. It just kind of sits over your platen, so your platen stays clean at all times. So we have 16-inch platen, so I buy 18-inch paper. So that's just easy to wrap around and deal with there. So I kind of align it to the center of my platen with a roll at the end, and I kind of pull it forward like this, kind of get to the edge, and make sure I have kind of a nice, clean, no lines or no air bubbles in there, like that. And I'll kind of pull it this way, kind of give it a little bit of tension with one hand, like this, and then just kind of massage it on. And then we have a nice clean surface so we can get fresh adhesive on there, because you'll have buildup and you can kind of see. Maybe we'll just point to this one. This one's got ink and all kinds of other crap on it, but all this buildup of, you see some ink here, there, just a lot of just lint and fuzz and stuff from different shirts and even just pieces of thread. So we got our screen all ready to go, and we just want to do some final setup on the press here to get ready and to get the shirts going. So T-square and a pen is really about it here. This is just to make sure everything centers up properly. 8 inches is going to be our center mark. It's going to make a center line, so we can align our film to that and we'll know we're perfectly center. When doing a left chest, I actually just center off this other half, so 4 inches in. So I'll just make that line just so we have it. Doing a left or a right chest, this is exactly how I will set it up. Go ahead and take our screen, put it in the press here. I have my platen set where I need them, my normal spot. I'm just going to lower this screen down, center up the registration marks here. Just make sure they're on this center line. Good enough. And when I tighten down my screen, I'm actually going to tighten it kind of alternating. And that's just because sometimes if you just do one side, it'll actually end up pulling the screen or maybe twisting it. This will keep it as center as you can. It's still going to move it a little bit because you're tightening it down, but I actually hold and I press the screen up against the platen while I do this. Lift her up. I got a little bit of shifting even when I lifted that up, and that can happen with these clamps sometimes. The next thing we're going to want to check is our off contact and our tilt, which on this press are two different adjustments. Your tilt is actually right here, this adjustment, which is actually going to cause the screen to go this way. Your off contact is a similar adjustment, but it's actually this plate. I don't know if we can even see it here, this guy. And as you raise this, it's just going to raise this entire piece as one. So it's going to bring this whole thing up this way, but it's not like the tilt that's actually doing this maneuver. It's this entire head is just lifting like this more. So we just use a 2-inch white tape. I go ahead and I kind of spread this out about the width of the frame entirely, and I do that because you want a little bit of tape to actually stick up out of this frame so you can grab it when you're pulling it out. And I'm going to go in a clockwise or counterclockwise, so when the tape lays on itself, you'll be able to peel it up and it'll kind of just peel all in one go, which is really nice. And then for the registration marks, it's the Scotch tape I mentioned earlier. Just grab a piece of that, 2 pieces, don't need to be very big. Fold those tabs over like that. Place them on there. We're ready to roll. We're going to put some adhesive on the platens so our shirts will stick down. We'll put the ink in the screen and then we'll get going. We're going to actually put some adhesive on the platen. With this project, we're doing shirts and hoodies. So we're actually going to start with a water-based adhesive here, which is a liquid rather than an aerosol. And I like this stuff a lot just because it lasts forever and it stays sticky for a long time. It's pretty runny and difficult to work with, so I use those same cleanup cards I talked about before to spread this around. And I'm just going to worry about just my print area, which is going to be essentially up here. So only about half the platen, or maybe a third. So we're just going to put, it doesn't take very much. The stuff spreads pretty far. So I'm just trying to get a little, like honestly, probably that much is enough for shirts. I'm just going to spread it. And that'll be a good place to start. It's always best to start with just a little bit because this stuff can get really sticky really quick. So especially when you're printing designs like rectangles or circles or something like that, if it's too sticky when you pull the shirt off, you'll see definitely some stretching and just makes the design look warped. So we're going to go ahead and get our ink in the screen. And this is going to be an inside look into how weird we get sometimes with screen printing, and we just do things in weird ways, because most of the time I would actually take my ink container, like this black over here, and I would actually just bring that over here, scoop it out and put it in the screen. We have this gallon of white ink that is just, I don't know what happened, but it's in bad shape, and I'm not going to touch it because I'm just going to get ink everywhere. So I'm actually going to take my spatula here, a good little scoop of ink, make sure it's not falling off. I'm just going to bring it over here. Just spread it in there right there. That should be plenty for what we're doing. Pop that in there. We're going to grab our test shirt. We're just using the standard, just Bella 3001. Just going to put our screen down and we're just going to give it a print. Looks like it's in the right spot where I want it to be. Get our ink, kind of get a nice kind of even line or bead of ink there. We're going to flood that. I'll do this one-handed, so it's probably going to, if you haven't done this before, it's going to look easier than it probably feels when you go to try it, but it's just something you'll get with muscle memory. I'm actually going to flood this ink over the design, and I do this with the screen in the down position. When you're first starting, I'd probably recommend doing it up here, because if you go too hard, you're just going to put ink onto the shirt. Have my squeegee blade laying flat, just flat onto the screen. Just put just a little bit of pressure, just barely any, and just drag that this way like that. You can see I kind of covered it up, loaded some ink in there. Good to go. And I'm going to take my squeegee and put it on the other side here, kind of maybe in the middle of this bead of ink, to start the print. I'm going to press down. You're using kind of a combination of this part of your hand, your index and ring finger, and your thumb to create this pressure, pressing down like this. And you're going to press the edge of the blade into the screen. You kind of want to have this, I don't know if it's quite a 45 when you're pushing. So I'm going to press that edge of the blade in, kind of feel it bend a little bit, and just give it a nice smooth pass. You don't want to go too fast or too slow. You'll kind of get a feel for this. It'll be a nice, clean, even print. You're going to want to hit it. Probably going to do 3 times, I'd say. Like that. So I got kind of caught up in that. So like that. One more. I can see it's still not cleared all the way. Looking pretty good. We'll just do one more just to be safe. So I can tell that the ink in the screen is pretty clear, which is something you're looking for. You can usually tell immediately if there's like patches that are rough. And even in here in the print area where the squeegee was, you can see it's evenly cleared. You don't have like a thicker layer of ink here or in the center anywhere. Lift it up here. So there's our first layer. So that looks pretty good. It's just, we want to kind of analyze, see if there's any pinholes, anything that looks uneven or weird. Maybe the screen wasn't rinsed out properly. You'll see some issues. That looks pretty good. I'm going to rotate this over, and we're going to put it under the flash dryer. And this platen is totally cold, so it's going to take a little bit of time to warm it, or the shirt to flash cure. And as you do this in your production, your platens will heat up, so there will be less time between your flashes. But we're going in cold here. So we'll lay that there, let that sit for a little bit. And I'm going to rotate this away from me in this way, just to give it some sort of cool down. Looking pretty good. So this is already good to go. I have just a little bit of ink coming off of my finger, but barely any. So I'll put it under there for just a few more seconds. Ideally, you want it to be just a little bit tacky feeling, but not having any major amounts of ink coming off when you just dab your fingers into the design. Okay, that should be good. So rotate that around again. And we're going to go ahead and give it another print. We're going to do 3 on this one. In this instance, we're actually going to just use the flash dryer to cure and probably the heat press, which is what most people will be using. The conveyor dryer is the most self-explanatory. You essentially just throw the shirt on the other end, let it pass through, and you set your temperatures accordingly so your ink is hitting your cure temperature for the amount of time necessary. We're using this ink called FN ink, and it actually cures at a lot lower temperature at 260 degrees. So there's our test print. Looks pretty good. I think spacing wise looks good. This just tells me that we're good to go into production now. So we'll make sure all the platens are in the same spot, so we have the same result on every shirt, and then we'll start loading everything up. The way I end up loading my shirts is that if I'm printing the front, I actually have them face down. And I'm pulling the shirt off kind of like this direction and flipping it over. I'm gonna go ahead and load this shirt. I kind of put my hands in, pinch the sides a bit, maybe roll it up a little bit, and then I'm gonna slide it over the platen here. And the way I'm lining my shirts up on this is just with this collar seam right to the edge. I'm kind of feeling the seams here. These are Portland companies, so they don't have any side seams to go off of. I like using like Bella's or Next Level or something that has a side seam. And kind of, for me, I kind of just feel around to see where those are at. It's a good indicator of how centered the shirt is. But on these, I'm using the sleeve seams and just the corners, like where the armpits would be here. At this point, I've gotten my platens heated up well enough to where the shirts don't really need to sit under there too long. Now that this is flashed, had a cool down station, and is now ready for the second print, I'm gonna lower this down, do my final print here, and I'm gonna pull this off. And you can pull from your shoulder seams and the corner of the sleeve right here. I find that can be kind of harder to do, at least when your platen is really sticky. So I actually take the bottom of the shirt here, create tension, and kind of pull it off down that way so we don't stretch the design too much. Pull it off. I kind of fold the sleeves over as I'm pulling, lay it down on the dryer, make sure it's flat. It's going to go through, it'll come out the other end cured and ready to go. So this is typically where these buckets come in handy. This is kind of filled with other stuff right now, but usually this would be empty and we're doing a production run of a few hundred shirts. We're gonna let all these kind of drop in and kind of be sorting them as we go. This is where my guy loading he'd be loading the shirt as I'm printing and unloading onto the dryer. He's kind of grabbing what's coming out, sorting it, folding it up. So when we do hoodies, this is a totally different animal, and this is where you definitely want to use some sort of web adhesive. I don't know if you can see that. This is the Albacam web adhesive, or premium web adhesive, and you got to be careful because it's messy and it's very, very sticky. You don't want to use it on a shirt because you're not going to get that shirt off. This stuff just works like a charm, but you have to put it on every hoodie. So what I'm kind of doing is just trying to get just the print area, not more than I need to, because it's not only is it a waste of adhesive, it's just more than you need to deal with. You don't need the whole platen to be sticky. It's just more obnoxious. And you're going to have some overspray over the edges, which I just tend to clean up with the can itself. So we'll see if you can see this here. And you're going to see it kind of why it's called web. Got like a Spider-Man thing going on here. There, you kind of cover that. Got the whole print area. I saw some kind of shot off around, so I'm actually going to take the can, just make sure I get any stragglers there. So these sweatshirts are a little tougher to load too with that adhesive because it sticks so much more. So you're going to kind of fight it a little bit more. It won't just kind of drag along your platen like a shirt will. So I wanted to handle another common issue kind of at the same time while we're printing these hoodies, because this is where this is going to come into play, especially with these Bella and Canvas hoodies and crew necks, because they're very, very soft, but they can tend to not have smooth prints on them. Like the fibrillation, the fibers actually come through into the ink. It's like a really common thing. And you're just like, I have this print, but it's just so rough. So I wanted to kind of do another approach at this is we'll print these as normal, but we're actually going to cure them using a heat press, which is another good option, because I know there's a lot of people out there who are already doing heat transfer vinyl or some sort of heat pressing of some sort. If you're getting into screen printing, this is going to be the best thing to use without having to invest in like a conveyor dryer or something, that you can cure your shirts reliably and consistently. And it'll fix all your fibrillation. It'll smooth out your prints and it'll be really nice. So we're just going to go here. We'll print these really quick. Nothing really different here about printing a sweatshirt versus a t-shirt. It's going to take less time underneath the flash because these are usually blends. They have a lot more polyester. They're thicker and they get hotter quicker. So we'll have a shorter flash time, which is kind of nice. So because we're going to heat press these to cure them, we're actually not going to flash them for too long after the second print. We're not trying to cure them here and then cure them on the... So we'll just kind of get it to where they're dry to the touch, and then we'll bring them to the heat. Like I said, these Bellas, not the smoothest. You can kind of see some of the fibers. This isn't the worst thing, but it's got way more texture and roughness going on with it. Grab your parchment paper or whatever you have. And when we do this, so this ink, like I said, it cures at that 260-degree zone. So we actually have this set to 270 and for 12 seconds. And I'm actually not going to put an insane amount of pressure on this. I'm really just going to get it to where it just kind of, this whole thing just kind of lays onto the hoodie. Perfect. So you can see that, it's kind of hard to tell on video, but it's just kind of just giving me just a little bit of resistance before it lays down, which tells me that there's not really a lot of pressure. It's just element itself is just kind of laying on the hoodie. Do that. Give it the 12 seconds. Peel off our parchment. Perfect. So pull that off. It's going to be hard to tell here. It's just more of a feel thing. You can just feel it's a lot smoother and nicer.
Thank you so much for tagging along with us today. I know it's a longer video than we normally do, but I hope you enjoyed learning about screen printing from Robby as much as I did. As you can see right next to me, I've got the finished product right here. Super excited to go show these to my coworkers. If you're in the market for blank apparel and you need it for your screen printing business, go check out ShirtSpace.com. We carry over 6,500 styles, over 130 brands. We've got pretty much everything you need to get your business going. Thanks for watching and have a great day.